Welcome to The Practical Intuitive, where host Robyn Fritz explores mind, body, and spirit for the real world. Robyn is an intuitive, spiritual consultant and past life regression specialist based in Seattle, Washington. As the Practical Intuitive, she explores life on our conscious, evolving planet, our mother. It's all here, from how the world really works to intuition, the human-animal bond, mediumship, clearing space with space cooperating, and spirituality. It's Robyn Fritz, the Practical Intuitive, helping you master body, mind, and spirit for the real world. No ifs, ands, buts, or BS ever.
Welcome to the Practical Intuitive, Mind, Body, Spirit for the Real World. It is Monday, September 6, 2021. It is Labor Day, which interestingly fits into today's show, I just realized this morning. And we'll talk about that in a moment. My name is Robyn Fritz. I'm an intuitive and spiritual consultant and certified past life regression specialist based in Seattle, Washington. And today we're talking about the real world, right? We're talking about why we bless hurricanes, and we're talking about revealing nature's purpose on the planet, and not just about hurricanes, but how we live on the planet. And as I promised when I restarted my show, every show is going to be full of stories. And today, just sit back and understand and allow your intuition to inform you about what I'm going to talk about and how important you are to the health of the planet. So we're going to talk about why we bless hurricanes, why science is only beginning to understand the role of weather on our planet, and how we can do our part, body, mind, and spirit, and changing consciousness around the words that make no sense, climate change, and what does living as equals on a conscious, evolving planet, and what hurricanes have to do with that, and our garden decks. And wow, there's lots to talk about today and in upcoming shows. But as we get started today, I want to give you the opportunity to connect with my business partner, the Crystal Fallon. Yes, he is a crystal. He is citrine Lemurian quartz. And against his will and mine, he was carved into a crystal ball about 6 years before we met again back in 2009. So a citrine Lemurian quartz, Fallon has the amazing planes that a Lemurian quartz has, if you could see it in the size that it is. But he also has this faint citrine cast to him, a yellow amber cast. And I was talking with someone last week and I said, well, Fallon's really been at work the last few weeks. And she goes, how can you tell that? And I said, well, first of all, he talks a lot. But secondly, when Fallon is busy doing his work in the world as one of our ancient power crystals, he literally turns this golden yellowish color till it's almost hard to see into him. So, okay, Fallon's hard at work. So use your intuition. Let it guide you. You are intuitive. We all are. And we are all healers. So use that intuition to help you tap into Fallon and experience his energy throughout the show. So that means you may feel his energy. You may see him. He often appears as a gold man. He is a masculine energy. Other people will see him as he really is, as a crystal. He just doesn't want to scare people. So very frequently he appears as a crystal or as a gold man. You may hear him talk with you, so if you hear a really weird joke, that's probably him. Or you may know that you're just connected to him because that's your clear knowing sense. And of course, you probably don't have just one way of using your intuition, so allow your intuition to open up in this hour and connect with him. And we're going to do that quickly here. Take a deep breath, breathe straight into your gut, and feel that healthy energy coming in. And as you exhale, just feel yourself settling into your chair, or as you're walking down the street, just relaxing. Please don't do this while you're driving. And take another deep breath in and just feel that connection to Fallon. You can imagine it starting at the top of your head and running down your body and back. Imagine a gold line of energy running down and just carrying away with it the blocks that are holding you back today, so that you have this hour just for you to deepen your intuition and your own personal insight into the world. Okay, so let's get started. And I'm going to tell you some stories. I'm going to talk to you about what's happening in the world. And as I started the show, I said, well, it's really kind of significant that today is Labor Day, because last year, a year ago on Labor Day, we were experiencing very unusual high winds coming across the eastern side of Washington state and down into California, Oregon and California. Extremely high winds. And we'd had a very hot, dry summer, like this summer. For those of you who think it rains all the time in Seattle, it does not. In fact, it's difficult to grow a garden here unless you're aware that we have different seasons that have different climates. So we can have a wet winter, which we did this year. We had way above normal rainfall in the winter, but we've had literally nothing since April. So we are extremely dry. So your plants have to be able to tolerate water in the winter and no rain at all in the summer. And a year ago, by the time Labor Day was over, significant parts of the western United States, the Pacific Northwest, literally burned down in the wildfires, Labor Day wildfires of 2020, in the middle of a pandemic. And while Seattle was blanketed in just incredible smoke, because the smoke of all of these wildfires blew out over the Pacific, right? And you'd think we were saved from it, and then the wind turned around and blew it all back over us. So literally, you could not see across the street here in Seattle. And we had no fires here. They were all around us. But one of the places they burned was the area I grew up in as a child. Literally burned to the ground. And many, many people lost their homes, not just in Oregon, but in Washington and California, and are still losing their homes to wildfires. And we talk about climate change, and we honestly don't know what we're talking about. So let me tell you what I know about climate change and what your intuition will inform you about as we talk today. And I have talked about this subject before, but it is summer, and it is hurricane season in the United States, in the Northern Hemisphere. And what does that mean? Okay. So, and we're going to talk about what hurricanes and what people call space clearing have in common. So let's start talking. This year in the United States, we have already seen the effects of two very powerful hurricanes. Hurricane Henri, which may have been a tropical storm at some point. And of course, the most recent one, Hurricane Ida. And I won't delve into at this point why I know what I know about hurricanes, only that I talk with the planet and various beings on the planet. And like all of us, hurricanes are alive, right? And they have a purpose. They are created to cleanse the planet. Now think of that in relation to what we call space clearing energy, right? Because we're going to come back to that here in the show. But we experienced the effects of these two hurricanes. We saw extreme rainfall. We saw flooding all the way from the Gulf Coast up through the Northeast, New York State, and I would have tried to tell people what Manhattan was going to look like. But people don't listen to people like me because they think we don't know what we're talking about, or that we're crazy intuitives, or we're not the scientists studying consciousness and intuition. Like those people really have a handle on what's going on, because they almost do, but don't quite. So we were shocked by the rainfall and by the storm surge, and we shouldn't be. We should start to think about what hurricanes do in the world. because they do have a job. And in fact, when you talk about clearing space, hurricanes are the experts. They're planetary space clearing experts. They are the authority. So how do I know this? Okay, so, and I'm also telling you this because I am so frustrated because I learned what the purpose of hurricanes was in 2005 from a conversation with a hurricane. And only now is science revealing that, oh, wow, the Gulf Stream is slowing down. So let me tell you what that means. So when I converse with hurricanes, when I check in and find out what they're doing, my job as the guardian is literally to be there and support. It's not to change them, not to alter them, not to talk them out of their work. It's just literally to connect with them. My job is to connect human to other. And trust me, I didn't know that was my job for a long time. And when I found out about it, I'm like, what, say what again? Thank goodness I have a sense of humor because I'm like, what in the world are you guys talking about? And that is my spiritual team. So in 2004, I had my first conversation with hurricanes. And trust me, I was shocked. I had no idea that I could talk with a hurricane or influence it. But I bet you don't know that you can too, right? In fact, we all have an effect on hurricanes. We all have an effect on the weather. We all have an effect on the planet because we are one of many equals who live here on the planet. And our first job is to serve our mother, our planet. So what does that mean? So by the time Hurricane Ophelia came around in 2005, I was aware that if a hurricane was acting however science calls erratic, that it wasn't acting like a normal hurricane, that was my clue to go in and just say hello. And Hurricane Ophelia was, what do you call it? Category 1. Okay, so sorry. There's a lot going on in my world right now. Category 1 hurricane off the Atlantic coast. And she was bouncing into the coast and off again and into and off again, this very erratic pattern. And I was following it on television and in the news, and they were saying, people, this hurricane is really acting very different from normal hurricanes. I thought, oh, okay, so Hurricane Ophelia, would you like to have a conversation? And she would. And she did. And she said, I would like to tell you what the work of a hurricane is in the world. Now, I have told this story before. I have told this story in my previous version of the radio show, and I'm telling it again because we need to hear this, and we need to understand that hurricanes are not evil. They are, in fact, extremely important. Now, let me back up a minute or two, and explain why, okay? So people talk about hurricanes destroying or killing, and they're still doing that. Hurricane Ida claimed X lives. Hurricane Ida dumped all this rain. Hurricane Ida did this and did that, as if we're in a battle, in a war with hurricanes. And it certainly can feel like that. Believe me, I understand how horrifying it is to be in the middle of one. I was in the middle of a hurricane as a child. I was terrified. It is a very strong force. And what the world looks like when it's past can be devastating. We could lose our homes, we could lose our livelihoods, we could lose our lives, we could be injured. Yes, it's all true. And those beings that we love as well. But when we think about them and we say they kill or destroy or damage or whatever the phrases are, puts us at odds with the natural force of the planet that we should be connecting with, right? And to change our thinking around that, we need to understand what they do. So one of the things we need to understand is that there are two forces on the planet that determine our fate as humans, our fate as animals, as trees, that determine the fate of the planet, whether it lives or dies. Number one, volcanoes. And again, I will tell you stories about volcanoes in upcoming shows, including the volcano that I'm closest with, Mount St. Helens here in Washington State. The other thing is hurricanes. Hurricanes help moderate our climate. So if you're thinking of climate change, you think first and foremost of what hurricanes do, and secondly, what we're doing to make things worse on the planet and what we can do to make things better. Okay, so that's the background. So back to Hurricane Ophelia here before we run into the break here in a few minutes. Hurricane Ophelia said she wanted to explain to me the work of hurricanes on the planet. And I'm like, okay, go for it. Awesome, right? And she showed me a picture of this old woman, and she was stirring a pot of soup. And the soup, if you make soup and it boils down too much and the water kind of goes out and all the vegetables are like turning into mush and it becomes harder and harder to stir it. That's what Hurricane Ophelia said hurricanes are trying to do in the Gulf, with the Gulf Stream, that the Gulf Stream is slowing down because the planet is starting to freeze. It is not global warming, people. It is freezing, right? So she showed me that the work of the hurricanes is to get into the Gulf Stream and start stirring it up, that the force of the hurricane gets the water moving, and it goes, and, as it slows down, the current goes deeper and deeper. Think of a wooden spoon going all the way to the bottom of the pot, moving all the way up the coast. So what Hurricane Ophelia said is that the Gulf Stream is slowing down, and if they can't get it to speed up, the planet's going to freeze. And I'm like, why can't there be scientists sitting with people like me? Why couldn't there have been a scientist sitting there to ask the questions that I didn't have the scientific meteorological background to understand, even though the hurricanes were yelling at me, read a book, we can't teach you everything. And I'm like, I'm reading as fast as I can, but I still don't know the questions to ask, all of the questions that a scientist could ask. So, it's time for the break. Come back, and after the break, I'm going to tell you what I learned and what science has learned since. So hang on, we'll be right back.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
This segment of The Practical Intuitive is brought to you by Andrea Bovey, licensed insurance agent at boveyinsurance.com. Andrea specializes in affordable health insurance for Americans of all ages. Yes, affordable health insurance exists. It's called a defined benefit plan. It's a budget concept. That means you'll be able to see any doctor, access outpatient services, receive covered preventative services such as mammograms and colonoscopies, enjoy unlimited free virtual doctor visits, and be covered for urgent care, ER, and hospital visits. But there's more. During a free consultation, insurance agent Andrea Bovey can help you decide if you should add critical illness or accident coverage, so all your risks are covered when something serious occurs. All this while still delivering savings. Yes, the premiums can be much lower than those in the Affordable Care Act plans. Ready to check it out? Go to boveyinsurance.com to book a free consultation with insurance agent Andrea Bovey. Andrea is based in Arizona, but she works by phone and webinar so she can help you wherever you are in the United States. One more thing. If you're nearing your 65th birthday or you are already on Medicare, Andrea can assist you with Medicare health and drug plans. Andrea works with her clients to find the best healthcare products at the best prices. Ready to learn more? Contact Andrea Bovey at boveyinsurance.com. That's BOVEY insurance.com.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing
a job and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Practical Intuitive Mind, Body, Spirit for the Real World. It's Robyn, Fritz. It's a sunny afternoon in Seattle, although they tell us a bit muggy here and maybe a thunderstorm, but nothing like last year when these powerful winds blew through and burned down so much of what people know in Oregon, Washington, and California. So before the break, I was talking with Hurricane Ophelia in 2005, and she pulled back and she showed me this picture of the Gulf Stream. Okay, so you know what the Gulf Stream is? Well, it starts in the Gulf of Mexico, runs right up the east coast of the United States and the east coast of Canada and all the way up to Greenland. Okay, she showed me slowing down and that the hurricanes were coming in increasing frequency, okay, meaning more and more hurricanes were coming to stir it up because the hurricanes themselves were terrified. Because if the Gulf Stream slows down, the planet will freeze, right? So everybody's talking about climate change and heat. Yeah, okay, fine. First of all, climate change, those words don't mean anything. We need to change them because it's like, yeah, okay, right, change your oil, right? Or like, whatever, it's like we don't have an investment in those words. We need words that help us make sense of them in our daily life and actually do something. So I'm going to talk about that at the end of the show and in upcoming shows. But at the time I still don't have scientists to talk to. And I've tried talking to some of the scientists who claim to be studying consciousness and so on. And they're really kind of arrogant and they're kind of like, well, this is science and you're just, somebody who says they're intuitive and you don't count. I'm like, oh my God, people, let's start getting along for crying out loud. So, several months after Hurricane Ophelia told me this, that the Gulf Stream was slowing down and that what we're talking about heat right now is actually the edge of an coming ice age, right? The ice age comes, the planet freezes, right? And everything dies, right? So there was a study that released 30 years of climate research literally on hurricanes and their effect moving across the ocean. And I thought, oh my gosh, come on, people. We need to start talking. We need to start working together because what Hurricane Ophelia told me in 10 minutes, it took climate and science experts 30 years to learn, okay? And I'm bringing this up again because it's not only hurricane season, but because I lost my temper a few weeks ago when this big study came out. And what did it say? Oh, guess what? The Gulf Stream is slowing down. And I'm like, come on, people. What does it take to get you to listen? And in effect, it takes all of us working together, changing our mindset on how we live on the planet. And it takes somebody, I guess, not just me, but a lot of people, to create partnerships with other people out there on the planet so that we're all working together toward one goal, which is a healthy planet, which supports all of us, and we support all of life on the planet as equals. And So when you stop to think about hurricanes and what their work is, we need to start thinking about it differently. I looked at Ida before Ida came to the United States, and I looked at Ida all the way up the coast. That hurricane was healthy, vibrant. She had some misgivings. She had some, when I was talking with her, she felt like, oh, sometimes like people, we don't feel like we're adequate or we don't feel like we're respected or people take us seriously. Ask any woman on the planet what that feels like, and she'll tell you, right? Because it's a male-oriented world. And Ida just felt like, well, I don't know. I want to do my job, right? And I've just encouraged her to do her job. I'm not saying what happens, what things look like afterwards is devastating for us, but it's what has to happen for the course of these hurricanes to do their job to keep the planet clear. Okay, so I know. Hang on, we're going to get to what that means for us as individuals, but think about it. If in 2005, at least one person, namely me, but I'm sure there are other people out there, other intuitives who are looking at all of life as equals, at least I'm trying to train people to think that way. We don't have time to waste. It's been 15 years since Hurricane Ophelia told me what hurricanes do, and now they're just finding out that the Gulf Stream is slowing down. We don't have time for crap like that. We don't have time for the arrogance of science to think that humans are still in charge, because we're not. We need to start thinking as individual citizens what we can do to live on a healthy planet and to help the planet continue to be healthy and to be fully conscious and evolved citizens in body, mind, and spirit. That's why I'm back doing my show. That's why I work with people to train them to use their intuition. And that's why I have this big idea of what we can do in the world. So think about it. What does that mean for us teaming up with scientists, right? And what does that mean for like the Gulf Stream? What does that mean for how we live on the planet, how we drive our cars, where we live, right? What does that mean, and how can we evolve from that? So let's back up a little bit and let's talk about what we can do. And to do that, I want to tell you about hurricanes as cleansing forces. Now, I just finished a book, and because of the crazy year that I've had, oh my gosh, because of the crazy year that I've had, and of course, who hasn't had a crazy couple of years here with the pandemic, right? You'd think we didn't need to add any more crap to it, but that happened in my life. So I haven't gotten as far as I needed to go, but I have a complete book on clearing space, the guide to clearing space, right? And it talks about not just how we clear our homes and our businesses, but how we work with nature. And I'm going to give you some ideas about it as we get toward the end of the show. But one section of the book really took my beta readers. It was hard for them. And that was my book on weather and about hurricanes. So I want to share that with you here because we're not at the end of hurricane season in the United States or in the Northern Hemisphere, right? And we will never be at the end of hurricane season. But it is true that our governments are actively working to change hurricanes. And our beloved fellow citizens, especially those who are energy healers who work with Reiki or any other different kind of energy healing system, they believe that their job is to push hurricanes away from land. And that's because they don't understand the work of hurricanes and because they're loving people and they don't want to see people suffer or animals suffer. They don't want to see buildings that have been blown to pieces. They don't want to see flooding. They don't want to see what we've seen in the United States over these years with hurricanes. But we need to start working with them as citizens and not as we're in charge of the planet. So how can you be at peace with a hurricane and even support it, right? Hurricanes are planetary experts in clearing space, right? And what does that mean? Clearing space means helping healthy energy move. So my practice of clearing space, I call space cooperating, and that's what my book, The Guide to Clearing Space, is all about. The difference between how we clear space by forcing energy to change, which is how most energy healers and so-called feng shui experts and space clearing experts work, by forcing change because humans are in control of the world and they force the energy to move. But it doesn't work. It doesn't last. And I know because I'm the one people called to clean up after all the other people didn't succeed in clearing the space. And I'm not saying that of arrogance. I'm saying it because that's my job. That's what people call me to do. So you can clear your space and you can help the planet clear your space with a mind, body, spirit change that puts you in cooperation with the planet as opposed to opposition. And that means finding out what the space itself needs to keep clear and working with it, negotiating change. And I'm going to talk about this more in upcoming shows where I talk about, I'll tell you some stories about space cooperating and what that can mean for you. But let's go back to hurricanes. When I started working with hurricanes in 2004, I worked with what I call the hurricane bosses because I admit it, sometimes maybe a lot of the time, I'm kind of a jerk, and I don't like to use the word G-O-D or the feminine version of that because I don't, right? That's just not where I am. But so the hurricane forces they're spirit guides, if you will, were very happy or whatever. They were maybe resigned to be calling them hurricane bosses. Anyway, they didn't care. That was fine by them. They have a sense of humor too. So every year, hurricanes are carefully planned and sent out into the world by the hurricane bosses to do their job. And their job is to cleanse the water in the land that they move over. Remember the Gulf Stream? Their job is to get that Gulf Stream moving and keep it moving, because if it doesn't, we're freezing to death. And we're already seeing that. A report that came out a few weeks ago and everybody's panicking, and I'm going, oh my gosh, for goodness sakes, why can't anybody listen to us? I've kind of started to figure out how that can happen. So when a hurricane comes into an area, every being in its path, whether it's human, a building, a plant, an animal, it gets to choose whether it lives or dies, right? And sometimes things die and sometimes things get altered, and I didn't choose what I'm going to be doing here in the next few months, but things happen to us, right? Hurricanes cleanse that area. Now, if you're a Reiki master or energy healing master, or even if you're a normal human being like we all are, right? And you see a hurricane coming at you and you say, I hate hurricanes. Hurricane XX, whatever your name is, go away. We hate you. Don't come here. But you know what? That's energy that becomes a block, right? That block of energy keeps the hurricane from doing its work. Yes, so each one of us has an effect on every hurricane, every windstorm, every raindrop, every sunny day. We have an effect on the world around us. Every being does, because every being on the planet is equal, right? Whether it's a tree, a human, an animal, a house, a business, the radio waves that I'm talking to you over today. We're all equals on the planet. We're all souls that have chosen that particular incarnation, whatever it is, to work toward love in the world, toward self-love, but also toward creating a cooperative planet, toward supporting and honoring our mother, our healthy planet that we live on. So what it looks like afterwards can be terrifying and sad, but it's what happens as hurricanes cleanse the land and the water that they move over. Now, what happens when we interfere with them? When we hate them, when we get all upset about them when we use Reiki to push them away from land, like so many of the Reiki people that I talk with. And it's not just Reiki, it's all of the energy healing systems, all with good love and loving intentions. Oh, people full of love, because they don't want people and animals in the land to suffer. But what they're forgetting is that's the job of the hurricane, and that's what it needs to do to keep the planet healthy, right? Hurricanes are conscious beings just like all of life, and they actively choose to do their work, right? So they can say, no, I don't want to do it, and then their course changes. Or we push them, and then we change their course. And that means the hurricane coming along behind it has to change its course to do the work of the hurricane that we somehow deflected, or that changed its mind and decided not to do it. Now, between you and me and the people next door, I don't know what's going on in the mountains of North Carolina, and I don't want to know because I don't think it's good or safe to know. But hurricanes have been trying to get there for years and not quite getting there to clear it up. Now, I have my suspicions, but there you go. So let's just look at it this way. When humans create ways to deflect hurricanes, when we use energy healing, when we just think that we don't want these to come, we keep them from doing the best work that they can do, right? So we're not the only beings that, humans aren't the only beings that affect hurricanes. We're just the only ones that we can do something about. So there are things that we can do to support hurricanes in the world. And there are things that we can do to support the planet in ways that lead to changing the terms climate change to something that means something to us. It's something that gets us involved in it. That's something that we don't just throw up our hands and go, oh my gosh, it's just not real enough for me to deal with, or it's like somebody else's job, or it's too big a job for me, one individual person. It's not, because you're here, because you're a magnificent soul in a magnificent body, and you can use body, mind, and spirit to support yourself, your fellow humans, and your planet. Now we're at a break, and after the break, we're going to talk about specifically how amazing you are and what you can do to help the planet. Hang on.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Consistently attract soulmate clients, begin showing up on brand, monetizing on your calling. Welcome all spiritual coaches, leaders, healers, light workers, and practitioners to a show that turns you on in your business and amplifies your magnetism. I'm host, catalyst, and spiritual business coach Rosalind Fung, and I'm here to journey with you into the juicy and help you discover where the real gaps are. Ignite your mindset and soul with strategies and systems as each episode takes you to the sweet spot that activates your soulgasmic business by tuning in on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain. Join me for your light language activation, and let's magnetize and monetize.
If I could be you,
and you could be me, for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome Welcome back to the Practical Intuitive Mind, Body, Spirit for the Real World. It's Robyn, Fritz, and today we're talking about not just blessing hurricanes, but revealing nature's purpose and what we can do, right? So we're talking about those mysterious words, climate change, right? And I'm going to be talking about that in other shows coming up. But I want to tell you about what we can do, right? Okay. And what I've learned from hurricanes, and this needs to get out to scientists. And if you've got ideas on that, you let me know, because they're like blank walls. And we don't need any more blank walls. And so let me tell you about that in the wildfires last year. So people are talking about wildfires and how it indicates climate change. Can you hear the quotes around climate change and hurricanes, right? And so they're saying, oh, well, the world is getting hotter and all of this and all of that. And we got, yeah, okay, right? All right. Do you know that over 60% of the wildfires are started by humans, right? Like, we're not smart enough to know when to light a fire and when not to. We're not smart enough to not be arsonists. And that isn't the only thing. When you're talking about, say, like California, right? So white men, and I say that in all, derogatory terms, and that includes me, includes all of us, because we need to start thinking about how to live on the planet versus our mindset. And that, again, is looking at the world as being caretakers and guardians, which is what our culture and religion have taught us, versus working in the world as partners with all life, as partners with the trees, as partners with hurricanes, with the water, with the planet herself, with all of the beings that are all equals, all souls doing their job. So the area I grew up in, the Santiam Canyon in Oregon, burned down in the wildfires last year. 8 of 10 towns that I knew growing up, mostly gone. And we suffered through that smoke here in Seattle. I woke up Saturday morning after Labor Day, and I cried my eyes out because it was so awful. And we weren't anywhere near it. Do you know they were close to evacuating Portland, Oregon because of the wildfires? And why? So think about going back a second to California. All right. So I'll talk about indigenous stuff in other shows, but there are people who lived in certain areas of our country before white people or before Europeans came. And they understood the land that they lived on in California. So they did what we now call prescribed burning. They burned areas so that there was like meadows and empty spaces between stands of trees. And the government, in all of its great wisdom, said, oh, no, we need trees everywhere. We need trees for this. We need trees for that. And that is one reason why California is burning, because we were doing what we decided was right, which we have done not just here in the United States, but to other civilizations in different parts of the world. We tried to tell them they didn't know what they were doing, and we did, which of course we didn't, because they had the natural knowledge of living in that area. So when we're talking about the work of hurricanes, when we're talking about the work of wildfires, we need to, here's my dream, we need to bring all of these people together. We need to bring scientists, climatologists, ecologists, environmentalists, people who are experienced in forestry, whatever that term is, the people who live in the area, the government, right? And people like me, the intuitives who can talk with the land, who can talk with the forest, who can tell you what a hurricane is thinking, and come together to create a better way of living on the land. Because if we don't, we're inviting disaster. It isn't the planet doing it to us. We're doing it to ourselves. We're doing it to the planet. All right? So we need to find a way to live in harmony. Isn't that like the goal of all religions? To live in harmony? Isn't that the goal of culture? You wouldn't think it right now, looking at all the crap that's going on in the world. But love really is the most important thing out there. So let me go back to hurricanes. There are 3 things that we can do to help hurricanes, right? First, the hurricane guidance forces have been very clear to me. And when you hear those voices speaking as firmly as they spoke to me, you listen up because they know. And they also have power, right? And they've been very vocal that we need to reduce our population. We are just having too many other humans on the planet. We need to slow down the rate of population. And when you talk about climate change and you neglect to talk about how many people the planet is expected to support, and you're not talking about reducing population, then you're not being honest with yourself and with the world around you and with the planet. And the hurricanes were very clear on that. Hurricane guidance force, reduce your population. We can do that, you know. We don't have to have 10 babies for every family. We need to start thinking about the word sustainable and how it applies to the number of people on the planet. They also want us to gather together in inland cities to move away from the coastlines. Now, you know, if you were really aware of what was going on in this country, in the United States I'm speaking of, you would be shocked because, you know, they kind of mentioned it a little bit on the news, like the low-lying areas, the areas offshore, the barrier islands, all those places along the Gulf Coast, they're completely flat, right? And they get destroyed by hurricanes. And then what does our government do in its not so infinite wisdom? It rebuilds. It rebuilds. We cannot build on flat land. We cannot build in flood zones. We need to start using our common sense and live in areas that can support us. Now, the hurricanes have asked us to move into big cities, right, and leave places like the Everglades and the shores along the coasts free for them to do their cleansing work. They don't want to hurt us. They just want to clear the land and the water that they move over. But we make it really difficult when we're there, living there, and then we get angry with the hurricanes because our property's been destroyed. Trust me, I know how horrible that feels. Again, I lived through a hurricane as a child. I've lived through horrifying events. I understand, but we need to start changing. There are too many of us on the planet, and we're living on places that are literally not sustainable, right? So we need to think about that. We need to give the planet its breathing spaces. And if that means pulling away and living in big cities and leaving huge areas wild and free from us, then that's what we need to do. Yes, I live by the beach, right? So you can say, well, you're a hypocrite, Robyn, except that I don't live on the beach or anywhere near a flood zone. And we're in a flood zone 1 out of 10, which is the lowest possible in the United States. And we're well away from the water. I can see it, but I don't live on top of it. And I live above it, right? And maybe that too will have to change. But I don't know. Elliott Bay, where Seattle is the ocean, but it's not the coast. And so I don't know. You know, it's all something we need to sit down and talk about. We need to work out. We need to have real conversations with all of the people involved and see where that goes. So here's the final thing that you can do. You can learn to love your hurricanes. You can learn to love your weather systems. You can learn to love the planet around you and learn how to live in harmony with it. And I'm going to give you some very specific ideas, but it starts by not interfering with hurricanes, by not pushing them away from land with your energy healing abilities and then celebrating because you saved the land, because the land needs to be cleaned and cleansed as much as the ocean does. And the hurricanes that are coming in increasing force, you got that? So not category 1, but category 3, 4, and 5, right? When I talked with Ida, she was going to be right on the edge of category 5. And I thought there's every possibility she could tip over into category 5. She was on our scale 6 miles per hour away from category 5 status. They need to do that to cleanse the land above that, to get deep down and stir up that Gulf Stream, because we all want to live, right? Hurricanes too, and the planet. So bless hurricanes on their work. Thank them for the work that they're doing, and help them by blessing them on their way. Doesn't mean make them stronger or push them away. It means bless them on their way. Thank them for doing their job. And it's just like anything in clearing space, the positive, healthy energy will move then properly, right? All it takes is a simple thought sent on its way, your morning coffee, your morning commute to work, whatever job you have during this pandemic, so that we're not hindering the world around us, but helping it. All right. So you can use your intuition, and everybody's intuitive. Don't say that you're not, because you are. And you just need to learn how your particular intuitive ability works, which when you're tapped into Fallon during this hour, you're getting a really good idea of that. You see pictures, you hear things, talk, you feel energy, you just know. Maybe you're a combination of all of those. Because I'm a combination of all of those, I sometimes forget that some people can only hear or only see, and that's not bad. That's not a denigration of them. It's just saying that's what their intuitive ability is. You may or may not develop others. Use what you've got and perfect it. All right. So learn to use your intuition, and then look at your world around you. Like I said in the beginning, climate change, those are words that mean nothing to anyone. And if you go back and you look at what reporters are putting out there, that's what they're finding out when they do surveys. Climate change means nothing to anybody. The words don't mean anything. The urgency of learning to live in harmony with the planet, which we have forgotten over the last 300 years, what I'm going to talk about in the next show. We've forgotten that. We need to quit forgetting and start remembering, and we need to start cooperating with the planet instead of fighting it. So we don't live in places that can't support us. No more building homes on barrier islands because you want to live by the water and you can't, because every time the tide comes in, you drown. It's stupid, right? But look in your own backyard. Like here in Seattle, we have both a need for drought-tolerant plants and plants that can survive the heavy rains in the winter, right? But you can create a garden on your deck. I have a backyard wildlife habitat, right? Which means that my garden supports wildlife in the area. And it's on a deck above the ground, right? But I have plants that are native to the area. I have water for visitors, which my cat monitors with great glee. So I've created a backyard wildlife habitat on my deck, which is a big thing in the area where I live in Seattle. So you can do that too, right? You can create gardens that are drought tolerant. You can create rain gardens in areas. You can not turn the deserts of Arizona and Nevada into garden centers. Let them be deserts, right? You can understand the power of water in the world, which means we don't have water. So how do we go about supporting all life? We need to, find new ways of science and engineering to support that. But body, mind, and spirit, put that together and figure out what you physically can do in your area. Invest your mind, in the connection to the planet, which I'll talk about on other shows. Broaden yourself, broaden your intuition. Instead of saying, I hate hurricanes, figure out what they do. Figure out what rain does. And I'll tell stories about that in the future. Figure out, what caused those wildfires. Humans, an unusual wind event, extreme drought and dryness, and a tough combination. And spirit equals service to the planet, right? We are all equally serving the planet. Hurricanes are massive cleansing forces. Our planet will die if we don't start cooperating with it. So change the word climate change to living sustainably, living well, living comfortably, living in harmony with the planet. Let's come up with words that mean something to people and that you can apply in your daily life. So how is it? What do you do about recycling? What do you do about the food you don't eat? What do you do about how many kids you have. What do you do about educating yourself and others? What do you do about cooperating with your neighbors? So that's today's show. Next time, we're going to talk more about this concept of living in harmony with the planet, and I'll have some really cool stories for you. But life changes, and I am going to be having to put my show on hiatus here for a couple of months because I am having my hip replaced, which was a tremendous shock to me and came out of the blue, which happens sometimes, and is not happening until November. But right now, I'm not functioning as well as I can, and so I want to be able to offer my show completely well and healthy. So after this month, I probably won't be doing it for several months. But I am thinking of you. Think of me. Send me emails about subjects you'd like me to cover on my show. You can find me at my website, robynfritz.com. That's ROBYNFRITZ.com. I offer personal and business intuition, space cooperating, mediumship, obviously, animal communication, soul clearing, past life regression. I am here for you. Let's all be here for each other and for our planet. She is magnificent, and she is depending on us to serve her as we serve each other. So thank you for joining me. Take care. Be well. Be strong.